Now the first subject, what we call devotion. This is really the beginning of all religions, devotion. Now, when we talk about religion, in the West and in the dictionary, the English dictionary, Oxford dictionary and even other Webster's dictionary, all these dictionaries define religion as a belief in a God, and God is seen to be a supernatural being, not a natural being. And God is supposed to have created the world and all that. But there are other gods also, that other kinds of religion, like polytheism. Polytheism is they believe in different kinds of gods. The god of love, the god of war, the god of all kinds of gods for various things. And the monotheism is that kind of religion that believes in one God who created the world. And so for these theistic religions, really mainly the monotheistic religions, like Judaism, Christianity and Islam, they are all, they believe that religion is something that has come down from earth, come down from heaven to earth. That religion is something that has come down from heaven to earth. And of course, that God who is in heaven has brought down a message to the human beings that God created. And the message is a certain number of laws, what are called the 10 Commandments. And these laws must be obeyed by the human beings. And if they don't obey, they'll be thrown into hell. And if they obey, they'll be taken to heaven. So that the whole problem is obeying the laws. That's the main thing there. Now, Buddhism is a different kind of religion, because in Buddhism we don't have this creator God. And Buddhism is what should be called a humanistic religion. Now that means the Buddhists don't believe that religion came down from heaven. That religion is something that has grown up on earth to satisfy a human need, to solve a human problem. And that human problem seems to be the same problem that even the theistic religions are trying to solve. Because all these theistic religions, they believe that when they die, they can go to heaven, where there is eternal life and eternal happiness. Why do they want eternal life and eternal happiness? Because in the world that we live in, there is no eternal life every person has to die. No one likes to die, but everyone has to die. And also, you don't have eternal happiness in this world that we are in. There are pleasures that come up once in a way and then it goes away. It doesn't stay. And then pains also come. They also remain for a while and goes away. Nothing is permanent in the world. And this is why it is not a world of real happiness. It's a world without happiness. So this is why people are in a state of insecurity. Insecurity, that's the problem. And of course, when you are born, there will be someone to look after you. Now, if there is no one to look after you, what will happen? You will die. Even as a child, if no one is looking after you. Now, out of all the animals in the world, the human being is also supposed to be one of the animals. But most other animals, when they are born, after a few hours or maybe very quickly, like fish, they can start swimming, and then other animals can start walking. But the human being takes a long time to be able to walk and even to run and even to find food. Now, if the human child is not given food by the parents or whoever is looking after them, that child will die. So, even from birth, they begin to feel the insecurity of life. And the parents have to provide the security, the comfort. Even when the child is born, what does the human child do? The first thing that the child does, what's that?
Breathe.
Yes, but that's correct. And not only breathe, that child begins to cry. That means the child is not comfortable. Because coming out of the mother's womb means inside is very hot. When you come out, it's very cold. It's like freezing cold. So child has to cry. And then that means you are entering a world where there is unhappiness and suffering. So, but the problem is, when the child is in any difficulty, what does the child do? The child will cry and then run to the mother or the father. The child is able to run, but if the child is not able to run, then he can't run and only cry. So, but somehow that insecurity is overcome to some extent because the parents are looking after the child. The mother or even the father, if there is anyone to look after the child can run to that person. Now this child begins to grow up and ultimately becomes an adult. So when the child has become an adult, when that adult is in difficulty, where can they run? Are they running to the mother or the father? The child begins to realize that the father and mother are as helpless as himself or herself. Where can they now run? So they can only run to an imaginary dream world where there is a God who is looking after the people and some God who is the creator of the world and all those things. So even before people thought about the creator, they had various kinds of gods for these people to go and pray to the gods in order to share their supernatural powers. That is how they feel the security. It's only a feeling of security that you get. It's not a real security because those gods are not visible to anyone and they can only believe. So they are only in an imaginary world of belief. Now, this is why in most of these theistic religions, belief is the most important thing. And that belief gives a feeling of security. And that is what they call faith. Faith is belief. And they also have the hope. The hope is that God will help them. And also, even when they die, God will come and take them to heaven. And of course, once they die, they are free from all the troubles because they have eternal life and eternal happiness. So this is, but in this humanistic religion, they begin to think in a different way in Buddhism. You see, they are aware of the insecurity of life. The problems of life is that you have to die. That's the biggest problem. And the other one is that you are not happy all the time. You are unhappy, you are having problems. And that means the basic thing in this unhappiness is that your desires cannot be satisfied. Because these things called pleasures just come and go. When the pleasure is present, you can be happy. But when the pleasure is absent, you are unhappy. When the pain is present, you are unhappy. But when the pain is absent, you are happy. So this happiness and unhappiness is alternating all the time. And always dissatisfied. Always dissatisfied because we are filled with desires of all kinds. So at the beginning it may be that you need some clothes to wear. So you have clothes to wear, but then that is not enough. Another desire comes up. You have to have what they call having a roof to protect you. That means you must have a house to live in. And then that is also not enough. You need food to eat. So you have to have food, and then you also need medicine when you are sick. So all these problems, how today modern people, how do they solve that problem? Food, clothing, shelter and medicine. 4 things. And they have to go and do a job. That is the only way they can find money. And money has become the tool to satisfy your desires. He is the accountant. You know how to make money. Well, the most important also becomes distorted, and now like in the cats you see the eyes, that black spot in the eye begins to expand, and also the hair stand on end. So all that kind of thing that happens means that you have become angry. So the anger that we see, that your face looks like a devil, all that happens because anger. And not only that, now this anger is thrown out in the form of speech, where you start using bad language and even going to fight and even maybe to kill people. So all that happens is a great big disturbance, and this is what today people call stress. Stress is the damage done by emotions. So this happens not only in anger, it also happens even in sexual desire. The same thing happens. Even the whole body becomes distorted. You may think it is pleasure, but it's not real pleasure. There's all kinds of discomforts going on. And this is why it is necessary to stop this. So it is important to understand where did we come to? How so when we talk about the emotions are creating problems in the world. This is what the Buddha saw. And And even modern psychologists are aware of this. Even people like Sigmund Freud, what was he doing? His whole life was spent to find out the way to control emotions. It is the emotions that is creating all the problems. But unfortunately, Freud could not find out how to solve it. He was only trying to solve it. And he made a small mistake. The mistake was that he thought the emotions are built into the system. We are born with these emotions. And so, the emotions are always trying to go out, seeking an outlet. And this contains a lot of energy. And this energy has to be released in some way or other. And the only solution that he found was what he called sublimation. Sublimation means to send this energy on socially acceptable channels. What is that socially acceptable channel? Now, if you are sexually aroused, you don't go and try to rape all the women you see on the road. The proper thing is, get married. That is the socially acceptable way. Or if you are angry and you want to kill some person or something like that, don't do that. File a case in courts so that the lawyers will benefit from that. So that is the only way you can solve the problem. So this is what is called sublimation. Doing things in a good way. And that is what we call becoming civilized. That is what is called becoming civilized. So he wrote a book called Civilization and its Discontent. That means to be civilized is to be discontented. That means you are not happy, because the thing is, a young man might get married, you see, because that is the civilized way of doing it. But then, when he walks on the road, he sees another girl, you see. So, he wants that also. So how can he can't get married to two people? So what can they do?
He can go to jail.
So he has to be discontented. That is the problem. To be civilized is to be discontent. That is the discontent in civilization. So you see, it's very interesting. Freud could solve the problem beyond that. His only way was to sublimate. But sublimation is not going to solve the problem. So it was the Buddha who ultimately found a solution. The Buddha discovered that when we talk about the mind, we have really either two minds or two parts of the mind. And the thinking part is what we call our intelligence or the intellect. And the Buddha gave a name for that. That is called mano. Mano. And then the emotional part, he called chitta. The word chitta refers to the emotional part, and mano refers to, now we also have in psychology, they have two words. The thinking part is called the cognitive, and the emotional part is called the affect. Now Freud used two other words. The thinking part, Freud called the ego, and the emotional part he called the id, id. So anyway, now the ordinary people who are not psychologists or Buddhists, they have also two words. One is called the head, the other is called the heart. Heart refers to the emotions and the head refers to the thinking part. So you see, this is very important to understand. When Freud thought these emotions are coming from inside, seeking an outlet, and therefore the emotions cannot be removed completely, because the emotions, to solve this problem, we have to remove the emotions. The emotions are creating the problem. And the Buddha saw this when he said, he used the word tanha as the cause of suffering. Tanha, the word tanha is today translated as craving. But that is not correct. It's not craving, it is emotion. That is what tanha is, emotion. So chitta is also a word used to refer to the emotion. But the chitta is really tanha. It's the same thing. The important thing is that the emotions have to be got rid of. After Freud, a new school of psychology came up, and they said there is a method of getting rid of the emotion. That is called cognitive psychology. Cognitive psychology, they pointed out that that cognitive process, I told you there are two processes, cognitive and the affective. So the cognitive process simply means we see the world through the senses. If we didn't have the senses, we will not know anything about the world. Because what we see, the sense, eyes, ears, the nose, the tongue and the body. These are the five senses. And it is through the five senses that we become aware of a thing called the world. But with the eyes, we only see. With the ears we only hear. With the nose we only smell. With the tongue we only taste. And with the body we only touch. But all the information that we get from the eyes, the ears, the nose, the tongue, and the body is brought to the brain through the optic nerve, auditory nerve, the olfactory nerve, and all these different nerves bring. And the brain begins to think. There is a portion of the brain called the cerebrum. Now you want to know about the brain, no? So the brain, cerebrum. And that is where the thinking goes on. Especially what is called the cerebral cortex. That is where the thinking goes on. And with this thinking, you give meaning to what you saw, or what you heard, or what you smelled, or what you tasted, or what you touched. And that is what is called cognition. Giving meaning is the cognition. And according to the meaning that is given, the emotions are aroused. So, the real thing is coming from outside in and not inside out. Do you understand that? So that the meaning that you give is responsible for the emotion that is aroused. And this is what the Buddha saw. There in a sutra, the Buddha says, Apassaramidam bhikkhave chittam bhagantu upaklese upaklita. This is the word that we have to use is the mood. That emotional part is really the mood. What we call the heart is the mood. The mood can be calm or the mood can be exciting. So any emotional excitement is an excitement of the mood. So here the Buddha says, the mood in its normal state is very calm and clear. All the emotions are aroused due to things coming from outside. It's like water. Water in its original state is pure. But it gets polluted when foreign matter comes and falls into the water. So in the same way, the mind in its original state is pure and gets polluted due to things coming from the senses, eyes, the ears, the nose, the tongue, the body. And then how you give meaning to what you see, hear, smell, taste, touch. So that's the important thing. So it's very important to understand this, that this is how the mind can be purified, just as water can be purified through distillation or filtration. It can be purified. In the same way, the mind can be purified. And that is what we call meditation, is purification of the mind.